going. Let's go. You ready?
We are recording.
Okay. I call this council workshop meeting of January 12th, 2021 to order at 7:30 p.m. Will everybody please rise and stand to the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the city clerk please read the Open Public Meeting Act?
Okay. This meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Law. Notice of this meeting was included in a notice sent to the Record and the Star Ledger and advertised in said newspapers on January 9th, 2021, posted on the city's website, and has remained continuously posted as the required notices under the statute. A copy of this notice is and has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Please take notice that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et seq, and Local Finance Notice 2020-21 New Emergency Regulations, remote public meetings held during a declared emergency, issued by the Local Finance Board on September 24th, 2020, and NJAC 5:39-1 Emergency Remote Meeting Protocol for Local Public Bodies, establishing standard protocols. The City Council of the City of Englewood adopted Resolution Number 001-01-04-21, authorizing the City of Englewood's schedule of council meetings for 2021 to be held remotely via Zoom. Members of the public who wish to participate in the meeting may do so by calling or clicking on the link below at 7:30 p.m. The link is on our website, or by dialing 929-205-6099. The meeting ID for this meeting is 872-9596-8471, and the passcode is 742001. Individuals calling into this number will be able to fully participate in the meeting, including providing public comment. Public comments may be submitted by 3 p.m. on the date of the meeting, either through written letter or email to meeting@cityofenglewood.org. All written comments shall be read during the public forum portion of the meeting and shall be subject to the same time limitations for public speaking. Duplicative comments shall be noted for the record and summarized. The agenda for the meeting can be found on the city's website at www.cityofenglewood.org. A separate meeting will be used if closed session is required. Proper notice having been given, the municipal clerk is directed to include the statement in the minutes of this meeting.
Will the city clerk please do the roll call?
Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Yes.
Councilwoman Marin,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Here.
Council President Cobb.
Here.
Also present is Mayor Michael Wiles, City Attorney Bill Bailey, and City Manager Sonia Alves Viveros.
Okay. On resolution 021, if anyone from the public wishes to have comment about that, you have to state your name, address before speaking, and remind them that this is the only resolution 21. Before we do that, I want to make sure that Mr. Bailey, could you give us a brief background on this one for us?
Yes, sir. This resolution, as you may recall, municipalities and the joint insurance funds have professional risk managers, which are kind of like our insurance agents and liaisons with the insurance fund. So this is to appoint the risk manager, which is an annual appointment every year. It's just important that it get done sooner rather than later, just because we, the city manager, myself, need to continue to work with them in terms of pending litigation and things like that, and reviewing claims and comp claims, stuff like that.
Thank you. If anybody wishes from the public to speak, please go to the bottom of the pane, raise your hand, and the city clerk will let you in, and you have 2 minutes to speak on this particular topic.
No one has their hand raised.
Okay. We will close the public comment and then we'll take a vote on resolution 021. We need a motion to approve and a second.
So moved.
Second.
And you're supposed to be like right at midpoint behind where I'm.
Somebody's got some back feed on their, okay. Yes,
Question,
sir. Yep. Councilman
Oh.
Hamer.
Mr. Cobb, would you please ask either Mr. Bailey or, Ms. Alves Vivieros to explain a little bit about the risk manager, who it is?
Okay.
Yeah, we know
Mr. Bailey,
Sure.
go ahead, Mr. Bailey.
Yeah, it's Dominic Sinelli of Brown and Brown. That entity's been the risk manager for the city as long as I can remember, quite frankly. So we've been working with them for many years. I think they've probably been around longer than I have. Maybe not Councilman Rosenzweig or Councilwoman Marin may not have met them yet, but Councilman Cohen, Hamer, Mayor Wilds, and Councilman Cobb have met Mr. Sinelli because he periodically will participate in some of our meetings in closed session to go over pending claims and what have you. In fact, I think Mr. Sinelli might have attended one of the closed sessions back in December.
Yeah, he did.
And again, that's really our representative with in addition to the city manager, our representative with the joint insurance fund. And they help us out if we submit a claim. It could be even just something property damage. If there's damage to a piece of city equipment or a building, and they help process the claim with our insurance fund / insurance carrier, and really our representative there.
Okay, Sonia, would you like to add to that?
Sure. I just want the public and everyone else to understand what our risk manager does in terms of services alongside with our JIF is that they provide an extensive amount of training. Quarterly, we have quarterly safety meetings. That's also part of this. So it's not just a representation of workman's comp and civil matters. It's also making sure that our employees are provided the tools and the resources in order to, whether it's through harassment training or safety training for those who have CDL licenses and things like that. So it's a pretty large, extensive amount of services that they provide for the city.
Thank you. Yancy, could you do the roll call, please?
Sure. Councilman Cohen,
Yes.
Councilman Hamer,
Vote yes.
Councilwoman Marin,
Yes.
Councilman Rosenzweig,
Yes.
Council President Cobb.
I vote yes. So the motion has been carried and the resolution duly adopted. Next, we have resolutions for discussion. Annually, we appoint or we have resolutions or authorizing appointments to various areas and committees and various business lines for the city of Englewood. We will tonight discuss these things in closed session because you're talking about people as well. And then based on our discussions, we will be putting forth resolutions at the next meeting to vote on these various topics here. But we had to list them for the public to let them know that, or let the public know these are things that we will be acting on in the near future. Mr. Bailey, you want to add anything to that?
Just that these are all annual appointments to various positions in the city, professional appointments such as attorney, auditor, appraisers, as well as committee appointments, which under the Open Public Meetings Act is a clear provision that these could be discussed in closed session. However, the result of that closed session, and once an actual appointment is going to be made, that has to be done in open session in public. But these are primarily the annual appointments done every year because they are only one-year terms for most of these.
Right. Okay. Sonia, do you have something to add to this or not? You want to add something to this?
I do not, but I look forward to getting to know these once the individuals and the professionals once they're appointed. So
Sure. Okay. So we'll move on with the meeting. We have no ordinances for discussion and items for discussion. Mr. Bailey, the first item, affordable housing, you and I have talked about this. Can you give us some background in addition to the ordinance that we started preliminarily drafting in regards to this?
Right. If I could just kind of give a status of where the city is in terms of its affordable housing obligations. And just bear with me, just to give a little history for everyone's benefit. Back a number of years ago, the city was actually one of the first municipalities in the state obtained what's called the Judgment of Compliance and Repose, meaning that we had satisfied our second round affordable housing obligations. And there's a period of immunity attached to that, which means the city's protected from anyone trying to threaten to sue them, a builder's remedy suit, for example, for a certain period of time, but it's not without end. The city's period of immunity expired on May 31st, 2019, which means then the city starts reviewing in conjunction with the court what its obligation, next round obligation is, kind of prospectively. As you may have heard, many towns, some, one well-known one is one of our neighboring towns throughout the state have been going through this process, which we are in the midst of as well. So there is a quote lawsuit pending in Superior Court, which is the mechanism since COA has not really acted or in any way in a number of years, and the state Supreme Court a few years ago assigned that obligation to the local jurisdictions, meaning judges, to determine what the respective municipalities' obligations are to provide affordable housing for the next go-around. So in conjunction with that, what the court does is it appoints a planner as a special master who is kind of the eyes and ears of the court and works with the city through Ed Buzak is the city's special COA counsel, as well as, in our case, the only other interested party is the Fair Share Housing Center, the nonprofit that throughout the state looks into towns in terms of whether they've, in their view, satisfied affordable housing obligations and things of that nature. So that is pending in the Superior Court now. The judge has extended the city's immunity, by the way, so we still have immunity. We're not exposed. And we have had some discussions with the special master and the attorney for the Fair Share Housing Center in terms of everything the city's done to date, as well as what might be its prospective obligation to build or get additional affordable housing within the city going forward. In that regard, back in June, I had actually, because of COVID, we did it in separate cars, but had taken a special master on a tour of the city, pointing out to him where we have affordable housing already, much of which goes back to the late 60s, because the city, to its credit, was doing this even before it was an obligation, before Mount Laurel, which is the famous case from the late 70s and into the early 80s, establishing that, and gave him a tour of the city so he could get familiar with it, see what we have existing, and also evaluating, for example, how much vacant land there is in the city and perhaps other opportunities for there to be additional affordable housing. At present, what is typical and what the judge is doing, we had a conference shortly before Christmas, and she scheduled, we don't have a date certain yet, but for mediation, which essentially is an informal meeting with the city's officials, including its planner, who in this instance, the city had hired Stan Slahetka of T&M Associates back in 2019 as the city's planner on this. And I believe it was 2019 because a lot of this involves planning and working with the planner appointed by the court. So we're going to have a mediation probably in February. Again, nothing's been set, which again is an informal process to do an evaluation of what the city has and what the potential obligation for the city is. Parallel to that is, and we touched upon this at the last meeting, but back in 2020, we had, or Mr. Buzek had drafted a preliminary draft of a ordinance for the city, which would establish a mandatory set aside, is what it's called, meaning that for certain developments, typically if it's 5 residential units or more, the builder or developer or the owner would have an obligation to set aside a certain portion of those units as affordable housing. So it's not, if you build a single family home, for example, that doesn't mean you have to build affordable housing. But if you're building, the general rule is 5 units or more, some amount of that, which we can actually have Mr. Buzek, I can ask him to come to our next meeting or what have you to review that. And, since there is litigation pending, we can discuss in closed session in greater detail too, particularly if we've had I don't think we're gonna have the mediation actually by the next meeting, but to discuss kind of where we're at and kind of the scope of what we're talking about. But that's essentially it in a nutshell. But again, it's a requirement all the municipalities in the state have to go through to re-up their plans and demonstrate they're complying with the affordable housing obligations to build low and moderate income or provide for it within their municipalities. Englewood is in better shape than most municipalities just because of its history of doing it for decades really at this point. But there could be an additional obligation going forward. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the status of the affordable housing situation.
Anybody got any questions on the affordable housing from Mr. Bailey?
Question, Mr. Bailey, who's the judge in this case?
Judge Farrington.
Okay.
And a gentleman by the name of Frank Banish is the special master.
What's that name?
Frank Banish.
Manish.
B-A-N-I-S-C-H, I believe it is.
Charles, I have a question if I can.
Yes, please.
So tell me, Bill, if you can, I was always led to believe that we had robust affordable housing inventory and that by reinvesting or allowing some of the management to reinvest better facilities, it was another way of not defraying our obligation, but really expanding our obligation. Why do I have a sense that it's being reviewed as if we didn't do enough affordable housing? What's your professional opinion?
Yeah, no, it's not that we haven't done enough. Like I said, we're the first, I believe, town in the state to receive second round certification. However, every municipality has to go through this process, every single one.
So it's a mediation, no matter what you've done, just to make sure that you're in compliance.
So just to your point, Mayor, to give you an example, when I took Mr. Banish for a tour of the city, Rock Creek and Parkview, for example, that was a 50-year lease from 1969, which expired, and the city owns that property. However, the city, in doing the new lease, is maintaining them as low and moderate income units, and as part of that transaction, the current operator of that has to spend, or is pretty much done, spent $13.5 million to rehab those units. So those are all just good things that we can say, hey, even though we didn't technically have to, we did this. And not only that, because you get credit for rehabbing the units as well. And they needed it because they were, 50 years old. So that's just one example.
Did they get another 50-year lease, Bill?
Yeah.
They did. Wow, but the city owns Rock Creek and Parkview. So ultimately, if there's any real problem, it's the city. It's a well-placed decision because the city owns the property.
Correct.
Thank you.
So Sonia was before you, Councilman Cohen. She was before you.
Bill, correct me if I'm wrong. Part of that, there is some consideration for senior housing, low income senior housing. So it's not just that's also included. So if there's a possibility, that's another category that the city would be able to consider if a developer came in, or a partnership with some sort of big insurance conglomerate. That would be something to consider if we needed to meet an obligation, and that could be one of the items.
That's correct, because you do get credits for senior housing as well. You get credits for example, fostering facilities for people with handicaps to help with some independent living. So the Rock Creek Parkview, that was just one example, but there are several different types to accomplish that. And yeah, it can be, like I said, senior housing. In another municipality, we did one for people with disabilities, for example. And in some of those instances, you actually get bonus credits. So yeah, there's many different forms that meeting that obligation can take place.
Councilman Cohen?
Thank you. Bill, just a couple of quick questions. One, something that was just said, I don't remember who said it, regarding the new leases on Rockview and Park Creek, Rock Creek and Parkview, was that it was 50 years? Wasn't it 75 years we gave them?
You're correct, 75. I'm sorry, I misspoke. The prior one was 50.
Right, this was a 75 years. I was pretty sure about that. They required that for their financing when we did the deal, right?
Correct.
So yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. I just wanted to make sure I was right. Also, when you just talked about how there are all kinds of credits that to get on different kinds of senior housing or all that kind of stuff, does the new stuff that's like the assisted living on Route 4 or that kind of stuff, does that count to anything to senior housing, or does assisted living have any credit potential there?
Yeah, the Bristol, for example, by I think it's really federal law, they have to set aside 10% of their beds, if you will, for Medicare and Medicaid eligible people. So you do get some credits there as well.
And also, I would assume that, since the last time, since before we had our immunity, so to speak, just based on, new residences coming online throughout the city, that our obligations would have changed proportional to what came on. So my question would be, I mean, if I'm wrong, just tell me I'm wrong, but I would assume that it's based on, what the total housing stock is and a percentage of that, which if that was the case, considering our housing stock was enlarged, our overall percentage of affordable would have had to rise based on whatever percentage that was. If that's the case, do we know where we are in terms of if we got credits for the Bristol or some other things we got credits for, where that balance is currently at?
Yeah, that's part of the mediation is we don't have agreed upon numbers at that point. We've put forth, we need 10% of the beds at the Bristol. We should get credit for 272 units for Parkview and Rock Creek. We should get, and this one isn't quantified yet, additional credits for the $13.5 million in rehab done. We should get additional credits for rehab we've done in other city-owned or other like Westmore and others that are run by the Housing Authority. And also, the court also looks to how much vacant land is there, because at some point, there's just no land left to build or not sufficient land. But another example is the ERA settlement. There's a settlement into that. So we will get credit for that. So that's what the purpose of the mediation is, to really sit down and roll up our sleeves and say, listen, this is everything we've done. This is our inventory. Do you agree? Do you don't agree?
Do we believe that, considering the ERA settlement, both on both sides of the equation, both on the sense of that, the additional housing that went online in increasing our housing stock, but also what's affordable, that I believe that when we worked out those arrangements that we took the COA into consideration when we cut those numbers, right?
Yeah, that's why they have to set aside a certain number of the units to be lower. Yeah.
Theoretically, we've always had these conversations throughout every project, and especially the large ones like the ERA. So I would assume that, we've done our due diligence over the years on these, and that, theoretically, obviously with COA, you never know what's going on, but theoretically, we did do our due diligence, though.
Yeah, yeah,
Thank you so much, Bill.
sure.
Anyone else? Bill, the next one is the RFP overview process.
Yes, Council President, can you excuse me for 1 minute? I just got a call from the planner. He's having trouble logging on
Okay.
because he was going to participate in that.
What'd you say, Yancy?
I'm sorry, Bill, did you want him in this meeting or just closed? I only sent him for
No,
closed.
no, it was open session.
Oh, okay. Let me send him that link then.
Okay. Let me, if you don't mind, I'm just going to text him that
Yeah,
Yancey's.
yeah.
Mr. Council President,
Yes.
well, and I'll just, just while we're on hold for a second, can we ask, we were talking about, Bill mentioned, the progress, in the rehabs at Rock Creek and Parkview. Can we, at a future meeting when, when the information can be gathered, can we get an open session update on exactly where that process is and how far they are and what they've done and all that kind of stuff?
Yep.
If we can add that to an agenda and at an appropriate future meeting, that'd be good.
Council President, if there's no
Yes.
objection, can we move on to the next agenda items and then come back for
Yep.
the RFP discussion?
Yes, we can. So let's move on to the senior freeze program. Mr. Hamer, I believe you brought that to the table. You want to talk about it and then we can get Sonia's folks to talk about it, Michael Kaufman and whoever's on the line.
Absolutely. So both of these items really can be covered in these comments.
Right.
In that we are going through COVID and the pandemic, and we have people who are hurting, and there's a very real need to build our safety net and help residents as much as possible. So what I'm asking for in both of these programs is for the senior freeze to have the CFO, and not necessarily today, but have a presentation and figure out a way to do outreach to the community to make sure that all applicable residents are aware of what the program is and what the deadlines are, and figure out a way to communicate that information to everyone who needs to hear it, so that they can take advantage of it, and it would benefit them and us mightily. The same thing with the senior call program. I'd like to have the fire department, whether it's a chief or a designee, come and explain in detail what it is. The program essentially is the firemen make phone calls to seniors in the morning to do a wellness check, basically. And there are so many people. Englewood is more transient than it's ever been. So a good many people have moved in and aren't aware of the program. And this is an opportunity to connect with residents and fulfill needs just in case something happens. This is a call that gets placed, and we check on our seniors just to make sure everything is going the right way. So in times of isolation, it's an opportunity for outreach, and it certainly fulfills a need. So those are two ways to build up the safety net and strengthen the safety net that the town already has, or the city already has, but people may not be aware of.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we, since we have the city manager on, if she can organize those two presentations by contacting the folks that you've identified, and we can put them on for the next meeting. Sonia, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. One other thing too, I think I want to reach out to the county regarding the senior freeze, because it's been my experience that they do a little bit of outreach when it comes to the senior freeze. They often come to towns and do presentations, And during these times, I wonder if I have to talk to our recreation director about putting some sort of virtual thing together and some technology for the seniors to make that all work. So I have some ideas that I'll bring Merle on. We'll talk about how we could get the senior community involved both in the senior freeze and the senior call program. One other idea that I think I want to throw out there also, and I'll involve our police chief, is there is a program called it's like Operation Blue Angel. Basically, what you typically do is there are these lock boxes that seniors sign up for, and in the case of an emergency or any sort of emergency, that the police department would be the only emergency personnel that would have access to that if they so wish to. So those are some other options, and if the council wants me to explore, I can certainly do that and talk to the chief about it if we're looking on expanding on senior programming.
Yeah, I think in this time, whatever programming that we could get, obviously for any and everybody, is a great thing. But for our seniors, we need to really protect them. And so if you can bring those folks together for our next meeting, we can put it on the, for his presentations, we can put it on the agenda so we can address those two areas plus the one that you just brought up. I think that would be some good stuff.
Okay.
Councilman Hamer?
Yeah, well, just in addition to what's been said, I just want to make sure that we prepare some sort of communication so that
Right.
get the message out to as many people as can receive it, and have a plan for enhancing what we're already doing, and the new one, the Blue Angel program, explaining that and incorporating that into what's being done.
Right. Some type of robocall with that, telling the people that it being short, but something with some information where they can make sure they call somebody, and then that person can record all that information, and we can start to enhance these things.
Okay. And I'll just make a public announcement now that the senior freeze has been extended to February 1st. So Michael, if there's anything that we need to give to the public right now in terms of a call number, we should certainly do that now also as a PSA
Well, I was
to
going to
those that
say,
are watching.
yeah, I was going to talk a little about it. If you want to just give a brief
Yes, please.
summary about the senior freeze, I could do that now.
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, the property tax reimbursement program, which is also known as the senior freeze, is a program that is handled by the state. So actually, it's a state program. The taxpayer can apply, but there's a lot of requirements, which it's too many to go through now, but there's a website, the state website, a Division of Taxation discusses that. Anyone could go on the website and it tells you, the form is on there, and you could look at all of the instructions. The taxpayer can apply if they meet those requirements, and they can have their property taxes frozen at the state level. And any increases from their original year of application would be reimbursed by the state. The taxpayer still pays the regular tax to the city, but then whatever increase incurs from then on is reimbursed by the state. The state sends a check to the applicant. As I said before, the application can be found on the state's Division of Taxation website. In the application, there's a section which has to be completed by the tax collector. This section is to verify that the property taxes were paid and they met the requirements, the application requirements. Because now that the tax office is not open, the taxpayer can put their verification form in the city Dropbox, and the tax collector completes it and mails it back to the homeowner. If the homeowner wants, they could also, and then the homeowner mails it to the state. If the homeowner wants, they could put a stamped envelope with the state's address on in the application, and we could send it out also. Once a taxpayer is in the program, they must complete the application yearly to be eligible. Normally, it's due November 10th of every year. This year, they extended it then to December 31st, and then they extended it again to February 10th. So if anyone wants to do it, the state has to receive it by February 10th.
So we need to turn this around in a fashion and get something out sooner than later, because we're pressed up against the timeline here. So Sonia, if you could work with Mr. Kaufman to get something, and then we could get it out to the folks and remind the folks that have already participated in this program, it would be helpful. And for the ones that want to take advantage of the program, we just got to get it out as fast as we can. So if you could come up with something, then let's get it out. Councilman Hamer, you look like you were saying something.
Just one last thing, rather than directing people to the state's website, only if there's a user-friendly approach that we can take so that we're helping people and not just laying them off on the state's website, it probably would be warmly received.
Yeah,
I think the best solution to that is just to put a landing page on our website with all of the resources. That would be probably the most appropriate, in my opinion.
Okay, hold on, Councilman Cohen wants to go. But I just want to say, Sonia, that I guess we have to have somebody in City Hall picking those calls up too, to give them that direction as well. They have to be sensitive to that, because some people are just not, especially if they're living by themselves, they're going to need that extra hand holding, and we should do that for them. Yes, Councilman Cohen.
Yeah, just on a little bit of a tangent. One of the things we we talk about a lot is the robocalls, and obviously the importance of figuring out all our ways of communicating with our residents and all these kind of issues, especially under the pandemic circumstances. I just know from myself and folks I speak to is the amount of robocalls in general that are just out there over the last couple of months has multiplied infinitely. With any robocall system, you can always get a number of percentage of the way you check on their effectiveness is they'll usually give you stats back about how fast the hangups were after seeing them, or if they're getting picked up or whatnot. Is there a way that we can have at a future meeting those stats presented to us so we can just see and evaluate if those robocalls are actually getting through, or if they're just getting swamped with all the million other robocalls? And if we see the hang-up rate being overwhelmingly high and realize that they're not having the effect we intend, at least at that point we can know about it and determine some other course of action, maybe to supplement it or to do something else. But if we can get those stats from whoever is the company who's doing our robocalls, or whoever it is, which should be stats that are easily readily available, I think that would be helpful to all of us to figuring out if we're actually getting our messages out.
Councilman Rosenzweig, you look like you want to say something.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
And this is for Mr. Kaufman. Do we have a sense of how many Englewood residents have taken advantage of the senior freeze in, let's say, 2019, a year without a pandemic, just to get a sense of the utilization of it? And do we have a sense of early numbers for people who might have already applied, thinking about the November or
I could talk to the
deadline.
tax collector and find out those numbers for you.
Anybody else have any questions around these subjects?
Because I'm just saying that could also be a measure of utilization.
Right.
If Englewood resident usage of it went up 300%, then we know the message did get out there, either through us or through other venues.
Yep, I'll get that for you.
Council President, there's just one last thing. So this isn't necessarily the end of it. This hopefully is the launch pad for looking at what we do and how we do what we do, right, so that we can reach out and help more of the residents who live here. So our notification plan, the emails that go out to residents that sign up for them, however we need to broadcast and sort of market the things that we have in existence. Sonia, I know you mentioned communication as a key, one of the keys that you want to develop and enhance and make stronger. So if we can work along those lines to look at the things that we do and start sharing that, some of those services with residents, then I think we'll be helped in 2021.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, we have Mr. Stan Slechta. He's here to talk about the RFP. Yes.
Just quickly, just I guess to piggyback on what I said before, even when we're doing our email blasts, any of those systems on the email blasts come up with the open stats and the click rates and all that. I would just ask if, at our next meeting, if we can just have presented to us, what our stats are on our calls and our emails, just to see, by whatever metrics we want to determine and wherever we want to, however, we want to deem it successful or unsuccessful. But if if we can have that presented, I mean, at the end of the day, just sending out emails and calls sounds good, but we have to actually, I think, know for sure which, these stats are available to us. Are they penetrating or not? And if they are, great. If they're not, well, let's just, have a conversation then on what else we could be doing. But I think if we have those metrics presented, we can, be more informed and make those kind of determinations.
Can I just say one thing? Sorry.
Yes.
About the,
Yes.
Ken, going back to your question.
Yeah, thank you.
We don't actually keep track of how many people come in to verify. We haven't kept track of how many people come to verify the taxes. The state would probably know. I could find out if we could find out the amount, but the state keeps track of that. We wouldn't know how many applied for it because they get paid directly from the state.
Okay.
So when Mr. Kaufman, I'm going to ask the question. When you say there's one part of the form that you have to complete, the tax department, we don't track how many forms we complete?
Correct.
So we don't track that. That's what you're saying?
No, yeah, we don't track. When someone comes in,
why wouldn't we?
I never thought of a reason why we should. I mean,
Well, it would allow you to know how many people you've helped that particular year and how many people have taken advantage of that particular offering.
We could do that from now on.
It's always a good number to know, right? It's always something good to know. Yeah.
We could do it from now on, but it won't start until next year.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But I think that's something that a service that we're providing, and we could, if we knew people weren't really taking advantage of it, then we could really, say, hey, let's figure out a way for them to take advantage of it.
We could try to call the state and find out if they have the number, and if they'll probably have the number if they could give it to us. So we might be able to get it anyway.
Okay. All right. But I think going forward, that would just be a good exercise. It would be interesting to see how many people are taking advantage of these opportunities. Yes, Ms. Marin.
I just wanted to add, someone like Janet Sharma and her organization, Age Friendly Englewood, might be a perfect companion, Sonia, if to get this information. She's terrific, and she's very much in touch with what's going on with the seniors in Englewood. So as I say, she's a great source of information, and this is the kind of information that we want to get out to as many seniors as possible. Just a thought.
No, absolutely. That's been my experience with the age-friendly initiative, the Grata grant, that they're a very good resource for a municipality to deliver those kinds of services to our aging community and aging in place. That's their initiative, right?
Right. Thanks, Sonia.
Thank you.
Mr. Cohen.
I don't know offhand what the numbers are, but in our health department, we have the live calls going to individuals who ask for them, for seniors, who are alone, the check-in calls. Perhaps at least those calls, if we know those calls are happening.
The health department? I thought it was the fire department.
I'm sorry, the fire department. But when they're making those calls anyway, at this time, can we ask them when they're reaching those folks to mention this as well? My guess is folks that are requiring or asking for requesting those calls are probably less likely to be checking emails or checking other technology to see these kind of things to take advantage of. And if they're already on the phone, can we request at this time the fire department, when they make those calls, just one time in the next couple of days, just give those seniors a heads up that this is available, and if they have a question about it, they can reach out to whomever.
Sonia will look into that. So we have Mr. Slechta here to give us an overview of the process, how it works, or how you are going to make it work. You know, one of the things, Stan, I want to be clear, is that public participation is key to this thing. So whatever the process is, we have to have public participation in this, the overview, for the RFP.
For the request for proposal.
Yes.
And by the way, Happy New Year to everybody.
Same to you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Nice to be in 2021.
Sure.
So yeah, absolutely. The question of the RFP process, when we go out and what an RFP is, a request for proposals, and it's a request to respond to the interest of the city with respect to the development and potential adaptive reuse of the Liberty School site. And it's absolutely critical that there is public participation, not only in terms of evaluating any respondents' submissions to the city of Englewood as to their ideas and perspective with regards to the future use of the Liberty School site, but also public participation is going to be a critical part of any development of any redevelopment plan that's ultimately prepared to allow the future use of the Liberty School site. And as we've talked about in the past, that is could be a very, very wide range of different approaches and opportunities. And ultimately, the intent of using a request for proposal, where we're asking for respondents, is to evaluate a variety of different options and determining what is in fact in the best interests of the city of Englewood and the residents of the city of Englewood. And so I think, and we've talked about the redevelopment planning process for quite some time. And one of the benefits of the redevelopment planning process, and the site has been previously been designated as an area in need of redevelopment. We participated and prepared the redevelopment study for the Liberty School site. We also prepared the recent environmental evaluation of the site as well. So one of the things that the redevelopment planning process does do is provide a pretty significant amount of control for the city in the future use of the Liberty School site. So basically, the city has essentially and when I say the city, I'm talking about the city and its residents have essentially the last word in terms of the future use of the site. And the RFP process, requesting proposals, gives the city an opportunity to choose what the best approach might be.
Anybody got questions for Stan? Councilman Cohen.
Hi, Stan. How are you? Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year to you, Councilman.
Just wanted to check in. In what you're doing. Is there? We had, the Metro Church come before us a few months ago, presenting to us, very serious options regarding, community center opportunity there. I mean, they're obviously, I'm sure you understand the level of, I guess, I would just say level of interest. I mean, I don't know if that's appropriate verbiage, but the level of interest or the level of the issue of a community center that we keep talking about in our city, and the possibility here where Metro had a unique opportunity potentially, from a fiscal point to, maybe give us a unique opportunity. I don't know how COVID has affected them or not affected them, or affected their membership or not affected their membership from a fiscal perspective. But has that been an entity that you've been in, and you have or are planning on being in touch with? Because if this is one unique shot at finding resources for in a time when our city is going to be strapped from a capital perspective, but they prior to COVID were willing to deal with that, and to put up the dollar, so to speak. We've had it's like we've had so many different processes that overlay. I don't even it's like hard to figure out where we are sometimes. But so we had a process that was starting with the community center, which we're not in anymore, and then Metro came in and talked about it, and now we have your process. So I just want to know if the work that we had previously done or spoken to with Metro or those other concerns have been part of your conversations with communal conversations, community conversations, or initial conversations, in terms of trying to see how to sort of close the loops on those kind of things, or at least see and check in where a Metro now in pandemic, if that option's still on the table, and if it is, what does it look like and has it changed?
Yeah. Well, a couple of parts to the response to that. First, we have not yet engaged in any dialogue or discussion with any potential respondents to the request for proposal. Where we're at right now is preparing a draft proposal or request for proposal document that ultimately we're going to be reviewing with the city, and then defining the various questions and a framework for the responses that are going to be requested. So as I mentioned, there could be a pretty broad range of responses. So all the inputs that you're already getting in terms of information of interested parties can be embedded and go into the framing of that response, anticipated response. Because really, essentially what you want to do, as I mentioned, when we're casting a pretty wide net here, but at the same time, what you want to do is to ensure that whoever is going to be responding to the RFP is going to have the financial wherewithal to basically deliver the product that it is indicating that it wants to do, and certainly. The community decides if the community center is an integral part of any potential future use of the Liberty School site. You're conveying and you're basically indicating in your request for proposal what your intent is going to be, and if that's a critical and important part, that could be embedded into your responses. The other thing, and I think the third part of it, which is really important to understand when we're talking about developing or channeling potential responses here, is that respondents could not only just be a single entity, but it could be a combination of different entities, and all working together to create an attractive use of the school site that meets the community's needs. So it doesn't have to be one entity; it could be a partnership, or it could be a combination of entities. And again, one of the real important things here to understand is that the city, in fact, controls the outcomes. And I think that's that's I think one of the advantages of this process, using the RFP as a tool to get you to a user or respondent that essentially checks all the boxes, both in terms of the kinds of things you want to see take place at Liberty School and the variety of different things that we might want to take place at Liberty School, as well as being able to do it in a manner that is realistic, and that it's not just a potential, but it's actually a reality that could take place. And I think that's really the ultimate outcome. You want actually something that gets accomplished as part of the redevelopment process. Did that answer your question?
Well, just a quick follow-up to that. What I guess part of what I want to convey is, and I'm not sure, whether or not, the history or not to a degree, and you may very well might. And if I'm repeating myself, I apologize for that. And if you know this already, I apologize for that. But but I think part of the sensitivity that I just want to convey is that, and I just want to make sure you know that there exists a sensitivity there, is that, on the community center issue, the community's gone through a Joyce Dudley process, which started and stopped. It went through hearing from Metro Church, which was exciting, which started and stopped. And, there just hasn't been a closing of the loop, positively or negatively, on any of these kinds of processes, which the council has gone through, which has kind of left, the overall Englewood community, regardless of where people stand on a community center, how they envision it, or what they envision in Liberty School, it just kind of left everybody hanging, saying, raising aspirations, and then, well, where are we? Raising aspirations, another process, and then where are we? And now, part of the calls that I get is, okay, now we have this process, and this is process at least number 3, maybe 4, and it's like, so is this going to conclude? Is this going to get to a point of closure, or a point of, and I know there is a lot of concern. I hear about that, and I just want to make sure that you're aware of why there are such sensitivities, because of all these different processes on such a sensitive issue that have started and stopped, that, I just, I don't think it's fair to the people of Englewood to, people need either something to happen, not happen, or how it happens. I mean, whatever it's got to be, it's got to be. It can't just be a continual loop of raising aspirations and then, just nothing, transpiring, not because a decision was made to say yes or no, but because I don't actually even know where it went. So I just want to make sure that you're sensitive to the, the community sensitivities on these issues, and that, and that we know definitively here, first of all, when you say community input, that, we're able to, really define community input to make sure, one of the things that we've talked about this site is, there is a lot of talk about this site from a historical perspective. There's a lot of talk about this site from a mixed use perspective. There's a lot of talk about the site from a rateable perspective. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the site for a lot of different things. And I do think that part of what everybody in this city agrees with is that, the whole city, especially when you're talking about something this major, and this being probably the last massive piece, a massive comparative to the city, of property that the city still owns and can think about in these kind of ways, that, that in this kind of process, we got to bring everybody together here. We've got to make sure that the needs of everybody are together, that the sensitivities of everybody together. But I'm just, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, but to me, it's just, we need a process to go through from start to finish and close and produce. And I've just had enough of seeing so many different processes not get to that point. And I have every confidence in you that you can get us to that point, but that's critical. And I just wanted to make sure as you go through in the community input and all that, you understand, that part of the community frustration throughout Englewood is that we've just started and stopped and haven't actually closed the loop here. And it's not fair to aspirations of residents to just keep something dangling like that. So I want to, whatever part I can be to helpful, and we all can be helpful. I mean, we should really.
Yeah, and I think to respond to that, I think one of the most important things to understand, and as we've been authorized to prepare the request for proposal document, I want to emphasize too that a request for proposal is not the redevelopment plan. The redevelopment plan will be an outcome that takes place after a decision is made in reviewing all the respondents to the RFP. But I think one of the things, and so the first point being that we're going to be working with you in terms of your own schedule to make sure that there's a closure, certainly on the getting the RFP out, and a defined process for evaluating the respondents, and then a time frame for decision making. And really the respondents are going to be looking for that kind of the definitive time frame as well. That's going to be an important aspect of it. The other thing too is that once a decision is made by the city and a respondent is selected to move forward with whatever plan or approach is selected for by the city for the Liberty School site, again, because you're doing it as part of a redevelopment process, there will be a redeveloper agreement that's entered into, and there'll be performance requirements. There'll be timeframes that are all going to be specified to make sure that whatever approach is selected by the city is going to be implemented in a manner in which it's consistent with the city's intent. And that's also going to be embedded in ultimately the redevelopment plan document that's adopted. Again, it's control, control, control over the various steps of the process. It's important also to note, we're not the deciders as your consultant. You're the deciders in terms of the approach. And what you want to do, and what we're going to be helping you do as part of this process, is craft an RFP document that talks about all those issues and the aspirational concerns of the city on a variety of different levels, and so that you're going to direct, if we do this correctly and we define and design the RFP correctly, all that is going to be spelled out for the respondents, so that they're going to have an understanding of, these are the important issues and concerns, and these are the things that we're looking for you to respond to. And again, fundamentally, what we want is, we want somebody who is selected, an entity, whatever that, a nonprofit, a profit making entity, some combination. But we want to have somebody that is going to be able to do the things that they promise to do, and do it in a time frame, in a manner in which is consistent with the city's vision for the Liberty School site.
So I wanted to just one last follow-up. Can you walk us through for a second? I'm assuming that in developing the RFP, I know one things we talked about when we first brought you on was that in developing the RFP, you would be, you or your team, whatever that is, would be speaking directly to the community and using us as members of the council from our various wards as conduits to set up for you, which is a responsibility each of us would be tasked to take on, a methodology for you to be able to get to access to each of our wards, to be able to hear directly, whether it's in town hall forum or obviously Zoom town hall forum, I guess at this point. But do you have a time frame or a plan? So I have two parts of this question. One, do you have a time frame or a plan that we can help you with in terms of making sure that access is provided, and that you can get at this point get access to each of our wards and the people of our wards, so that you can hear directly from them in such a town hall type setting. And two, I also want to note, considering in the stop and starts that we've had prior, so I know we've paid for some sort of document from, let's say, the Dudley work on this. I would assume that I have no idea what that documentation looked like, but I know, is that something which you have had access to or getting access to, so that you can just have an idea of what's been done already, so you get the full institutional background? So I would think, first of all, I want to know, have you gotten any access to any of those notes or documentation to what already transpired, so that you have that background? And two is, like I said, what is your plan, or what is your timeline, or what is the methodology of collaboration between us as council members and yourself in terms of gaining access to the community, to hear from each of our communities, directly, and for them to ask you questions and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Stan, hold on one second. When you answer this question, then Councilman Rosenzweig wants to go. So when you get finished with that question, and just think about it, it's just one community. It's not each of our communities.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stan.
I meant each of our wards. Yeah. That's why I said each of our council members went each of our wards.
Yeah, and I think that there's a couple of different answers. I'm going to try to be as concise as I possibly can be. In terms of timeframes of what we're looking at, as I mentioned, we've started our initial drafting of a RFP document in a framework, very similar framework that when we showed you some sample request for proposal documents that we've prepared in the past. So really, essentially the fundamental components, and we anticipate probably early to mid-February being in a position where we can sit down with whoever the city's representatives will be to kind of look at that, and then start to put together and refine the kinds of narrative and information that we want to ensure that sit in the RFP. Second part is, we're not, if there are key documents or things that we should be looking at that we're not aware of, we certainly, would again cast a wide net, and we'd want to see everything to better inform the creation of the RFP document, because more information, the better it's presented, and more fulsome way it's presented in the document only benefits the city because you get better responses. So our anticipation is that starting in sometime in February, we're going to be engaged in a much more interactive process with the city and kind of crafting a proposed draft document that ultimately can be finalized. In terms of the public process too, we certainly want to engage in that process, but as I mentioned, there's different levels and steps. And I think a couple of the key areas where the public process is going to be very important is when you get respondents in particular, being able to have public engagement and community input in evaluating the responses is going to be, I think, as important as anything. That's, I think, one of the key points where public input is going to be critical. So
how does that happen? What's the process for that?
Well, it could be, it could happen in a number of different ways, but I know that, well, we can maybe touch on that, but I know that sure. Councilman Rosenzweig wanted to ask a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So you mentioned it briefly, but if you can give me some details. There needs to be an environmental survey of the property. Is that what you said?
No, I said that we had, as far as our understanding of the Liberty School site. Well, one of the things that we did was we prepared the redevelopment analysis and study, and so we engaged in the community. We had a lot of we did a lot of research and review of that. We also were engaged by the city to do an environmental analysis of the site. So from an informational perspective, we don't have to do that environmental analysis as part of the RFP process. That's already been conducted.
So has that analysis been done, or is it something that will be done?
I believe it's been completed, and I think maybe Mr. Bailey can
well, Franz is on the line.
Oh, Franz. Oh, I see Franz's name. So Franz can give you an overview on that and what's been done to this point. Franz?
Yes. In terms of the analysis that's been completed, I believe that's been provided and reviewed. There's the major concern with the analysis of the building, as many of you are aware, is the cleanup aspect of it. There are many concerns regarding, how the, and not only what will it be eventually used for, but how much is the building worth, either standing on its own as it is now, as opposed to demolishing the entire building and starting from scratch. So that's all spelled out on the report that was submitted regarding the assessment of the building and the site. In terms of what eventually is going to happen there against that's going to be something that we're all going to have to review. The council is going to have to take a look at it and ultimately decide, obviously with my input, with Stan's input, as to, what would be the best scenario in terms of that site. But there's some concerns there, and it's not something that's new, but it's just been spelled out and ironed out in the report that was submitted to us.
So were there any surprises in that? I mean, I assume there might be some asbestos, maybe some oil tanks. I assume no endangered spotted owls that at that site.
No, it's not. I wouldn't say it's a surprise, but the levels are higher than what we would have wanted. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
And one thing that's important to note, and as we presented in the sample document, those kinds, like the environmental report and other background reports will be provided as part of appendices to the request for proposals, so that again, respondents that are reviewing the RFP will have their own due diligence and evaluation that they would have to undertake as part of their process of reviewing the RFP and making a determination of how they're going to respond. So we're going to give them, in the RFP, we're going to give them the background documentation that they need to do the burden to a certain extent in terms of their due diligence and evaluation of what they want to propose. It's going to be based upon their review of those documents.
Councilman Hamer?
No, I have no comments on this. It's an interesting process, and it will provide transparency, and it will be complete, and it will bring all the pieces together so that we can move forward and make a decision. So I'm very much looking forward to this.
Councilwoman Marin?
Sorry, President Cobb. I'm looking forward to this. I see this as a first step, putting together the RFP, which was explained. And once we see that document, you know, it'll be very interesting to see what comes from that.
Thank you. Stan, I'm going to close with this. You know, we want public involvement in this process, you know, some meetings with the public so you can hear what they have to say and what they're looking for. And so, you know, as you start to jot out a timeline for us, then we can set up meetings where we can have these public forums, especially since we're doing everything virtually. You know, once you kind of come back to us, I think that the takeaway is come back to us with a timeline when we can have these meetings, and then we can put them out there. And so people can prepare themselves with the questions they may have, and also be, you know, get the information from you as well as how this process continues to work and how we could get some value out of this.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Stan.
You're welcome.
I believe Stan was last, right?
No, vaccinations.
Vaccinations.
That's important.
Just a little thing like that.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Stan,
Well,
thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And be safe and be well, everybody. And
You
look forward
too.
to continuing
Okay.
work.
Look forward to hearing from you, Stan.
No, not a problem.
So we want to talk about the vaccinations, and where's Sonia at? Sonia, we want to talk about, you know, the vaccinations and how we're going to go about it from the city's perspective with the employees, you know, and how we're going to handle it. Mr. Federico should have probably been on this call as well.
He is. He's an attendee. So, Jim, if you can hear us, can you raise your hand, and then Yancey can allow you to speak. Oh, there you go. He's on there.
Hey, hi, Jim.
Hello, everybody.
Hey, Jim.
Hey,
good evening.
So, Jim, we just want to get a little update. I know that there's weekly meetings on Wednesday, and we talk about the vaccinations and that kind of stuff. So, just wanted to get an update from you and what the health department will be doing, and how we will be taking care of ourselves. Just give us a little background on what you're doing and what you're seeing right now around that.
So, today, the health department successfully enrolled in the COVID-19 vaccination program. So we'll be able to receive COVID-19 vaccination. We received notification today at 3:39. So tomorrow we're going to put in for at least 100 doses of COVID-19 vaccine that we'll distribute here at the health department. There's a lot of details involved with this. Councilman Cobb, you were at our flu shot clinic, the drive-through. It's not going to be as easy as that. There's more to it than meets the eye. And Claudette's our public health nurse. We want to make sure that we're going to do it safely and effectively and according to the law. Right now, we're only allowed to give vaccines to category 1A, which is police and fire, and also the healthcare workers. So with that said, we're going to get the vaccine, and the rollout, I'm open for ideas. I know the hospital is thinking about doing a site here in Inglewood, a larger site. And they're also thinking of doing one up in Inglewood Cliffs. And I'll open it up to any questions that you guys have.
Hey, Jim, I have a question. what we need to do is make sure as we go down this road that the folks that should get it are getting it in that order. So we need to make sure that when we get to our residents here, that they, first of all, they get the information, and then, you know, however the sign up takes place, that we make sure that it's communicated throughout the city so that folks can come in and get it. Because I think the goal is to make sure that we're covered, everybody. So I think that that's important. Councilman Cohen.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
Hello?
Two quick questions. One, is the vaccination that we're going to get the Pfizer one?
No, it's the Moderna one.
I know the Pfizer's a two-part. Is the Moderna's a one-part, right?
No,
It's also two?
Roll two.
which adds to the complexity again, Councilman Cohen.
Right. Okay. But I'm assuming, obviously, you know, however you work it out, you'll, you know, I trust in your abilities there. My other simple question is, you mentioned for a moment, you know, about looking for getting initially, unless I heard wrong, 100 vaccines, but then also obviously prioritizing healthcare workers, police, and fire. Obviously, when you're looking at healthcare workers, police, and fire, there's a lot more than 100 people there. You know, we got, you know, just police and fire is more than 100 people. So how are we going to make, if we only get 100 and those are the categories, what is the determination process as to who gets them in those categories when we first get the vaccines?
We had a little over 40 police and fire who expressed interest in the vaccine. I chose 100, Councilman Cohen, just because it seemed feasible, and the vials come in doses of 10, and it's a good starting point. I want to make sure that I don't want to order 500 and then sit on them because distributing them isn't going to be easy. It's myself, Claudette, and our health educator. We're going to do, and you see our health department, you know, we could really only do one every 15 minutes. And at this time, we're not allowed to transport the vaccine off site. So we want to start off slow, doing it right. Once we understand the process, maybe we'll start doing more doses. We could hire nurses. We could get some volunteers and do more doses. I was thinking, you know, look, we just got approval at 3:30 today. So, you know, like I have some ideas. Maybe one idea is we could use the fire department. You know, we could just walk across the door, that hallway there, and do like a larger scale vaccine model in the fire department. I didn't even talk to Eric Anderson about that. I don't know, like maybe we could move some of those fire engines out of there. And that way we could do bigger volume. So those are some things that I'm working on.
Councilwoman.
Can I finish my follow-up question?
I don't want to be ungrateful, but first of all, 100 doses is ridiculous. We have known about this for a while. I'm really surprised that your planning hadn't been done already. I'm sorry to speak this way. I don't know you and you don't know me, but every time I leave my house, at least 5 people descend on me to ask me where can they get the vaccine. A lot of us have already registered online with the state website. I find this unbelievable. New York is rolling out all of these programs, and you're talking about 100 doses. I guess the Englewood Health Department is not going to be what we could depend on to get the vaccine. It's going to have to be whatever the hospital sets up. But I'm surprised that you are not more exercised about this. I mean, it seems like we're very far behind. And this community is aware of it. This is a very educated, aware community. I would like you to explain to me, you should have been set up for this before you got the go-ahead. I don't understand the way you're describing this.
Sonia.
So, Ms. Marin, I just want to clarify too that New Jersey's approach has been quite a little bit different than some other states. So what I mean by that is that the state receives the approval or the vaccines from the federal government, and they so choose how they roll out. Unexpectedly, the governor made some decisions, even just as last week, allowing first responders, police, and fire to be included. So there's quite a bit of planning that's here. Jim has already ordered the freezers to make sure that once we do get the vaccines, that it's rolled out. Logistically, there's a lot of planning, as he mentioned, trying to collaborate with other departments. Once we do get that, I'm confident that we can roll this out seamlessly. There's going to be many various resources throughout the community, and similar to the flu shot, not everybody's quite comfortable coming to the health department. That could be a fear too. They want to go to their private practitioner if at some point they offer it, or so forth and so on. But I think that this was a project that we're all trying to see the best way and the best practices that's safe for our community and our employees too, as well.
Dr. Ken?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I actually have to agree with Mr. Federico. The logistics in administering the vaccine are extraordinarily complicated. I'm in on the calls at Mount Sinai where I work. The logistics are very, very difficult. So I think the worst thing you can do is waste vaccine. So getting too much and not using it is a big no-no. And also when you open that vial, you might want to have more than 10 people lined up, because if 2 people don't show up, you got a couple. And if you're doing one every 15 minutes because you want to observe them for anaphylaxis, you got a short window of time, and you're going to be running around with a needle who wants a shot in the arm, and it's not gonna work well. And even the best of places have had a great difficulty in rolling this out. And I'm familiar with New York State and New Jersey's rollout. I could tell you last Sunday, so that'd be the 3rd, New York State put out 3 different regulations, and each one superseded and negated the one earlier in the day, and that was on a Sunday. So it's been a very difficult moving target. So I think you're approaching it in the right way, because it's let's walk first and then start running.
If I may, Charles.
Yep.
Thank you. And I also want to reiterate what Dr. Rosenzweig said, and Sonia, Ms. Marin. There's been nobody stronger on all of this than Jim, and more prepared in advance than our county when it came to creating a process. This day today, I heard from 3 different vendors that are seeking vaccine, and they're happy to deploy their emergency medical people, the one thing that Jim is missing, so that they can give vaccines to all 4 wards, all 28,000 residents of our city. They just need vaccine. So I think what we need to do is make sure that Jim does this properly. I don't think the fire department's going to allow you to have any civilians use any part of it, because they still have to maintain a sterile environment. But you'll figure out between all the different public and private schools and the logistics that we have. And I'm going to furnish with you all of these emails. Last week, it was Palisades Court that wanted to use the kickboxing in partnership with Englewood Hospital, and I put it on the city manager's desk and everybody else to kind of figure out how to move that forward. If we need zoning changes, the Board of Adjustment, Planning Board, or the council will make ordinances that have to be made. I'm going to send these vendors to you, Mr. Federico, because I think, quite honestly, all hands on deck are important, and everybody who comes to me, and lots of residents are calling, emailing, and they're asking for vaccines. When people come, I want everybody vaccinated according to the CDC protocol, and we have to be creative and make sure we don't get stuck with extra serums or a disorderly process that will get people sick while they're mustering and waiting for a vaccine. So again, one email, there were people from different religious communities that consider themselves to be essential, but essential is not quite there. There are people that would like to set it up in religious schools or houses of worship. but they have to be catering to all residents. And I really want this under the umbrella of Mr. Fedorko. So he, in his wisdom, and I consider it, Judith, to be pure wisdom, can then deploy the assets as he needs, because we can actually create problems, as Dr. Rosenzweig said, if we don't deploy this properly. But we have to go with maximum speed. So the bottom line is, whatever resources are presenting, I'll turn them over to Sonia and to Jim, and you'll let us know then in what you want us to do.
Excuse me, listen, I did not mean, I am not interested in doing anything in a way that's not safe and secure. Maybe it's because I've been in, housebound so long, that I feel a real sense of urgency. I just feel that when I'm presented with a problem, I know that I'm laying out the procedure, mentally way ahead of the time that it's going to have to be carried out. I'm sorry if you guys don't agree with me, but the way this was presented was a little frustrating, and I am not the only one in this town, Mayor Wiles, that feels this way, and it's something you should hear. Safety is first. I have no intention of doing anything that's not done correctly. I just would like to see a little more energy, in terms of trying to develop this and get this to the people in Englewood. That's all.
The state of Israel, by the way, is the perfect example of how they've deployed literally millions of these, and again, with great protocol. And I am upset, frankly, that the state pales in contrast to New York, and New York is not really keeping up to speed. By the way, how many residents in Englewood have called me personally because they have property in Florida, have gone to Florida, gotten the shots, and have come back? So I share your frustration, and I'm happy to go marching to Trenton if we need to on behalf of the residents, but we have to let Jim set up properly. And then again, I think he gets the message from all of us that this is a priority.
Councilman Rosenzweig?
And just one comment, I would guess at this point in time, most of the medical personnel who live in Englewood have probably gotten the vaccine through their workplace, just judging by med Twitter and everyone's selfie with a needle in their arm. I think, and so I think we're on to the first responders, and then, on to people over 75. So I think that the nurses, physicians, transport people have probably been taken care of already.
Councilman Hamer?
Just, Judy, I understand your frustration, and and that of most of the rest of Englewood who hasn't gotten information. So I know that there's information that's coming in, and what we've got to do is process that information and put it in digestible form and get it out to the public so that people know what the plan is. Between Englewood Hospital, ShopRite Pharmacy, and now the health department, we know of 3 vaccination modes. So hopefully there's going to be a collaborative effort, and all 3 of those entities and whomever else is going to be distributing vaccinations or providing vaccinations, that information needs to come in so that all of it can go out and at the time that it's supposed to go. But the county did get, and the county's been processing however they're doing it, which hasn't gotten down to to residents, and frankly, a lot of it hasn't even gotten to the city manager. So it's important to get the information and start getting it out in ways that everyone can understand. So there is a process. So the vaccination's coming, and we just need to know what the process is so that people can anticipate and start to plan. And I think that provides a little bit of security and surety about what's going to happen. And it certainly will allay some of the fears and trepidation that people do have now.
I think, Jim, one thing that would be helpful is, if we define all the phases. I think everybody doesn't understand who's who qualifies at what phases. I think we have to do a better job at that. If we could get something out there to say, phase one, these are the people who are eligible, 1A, 1B, 1C. I think we have to get that information out to the people. And I'm saying everybody here should be educated with that information. I think it just will be helpful and to the community. I think that would be helpful to let people know how this process is working. But anyway, it's a tremendous lift, and anybody and everybody who's involved, I thank them for this, because this is not easy, and the fact that we're doing it is important. So Jim, just keep pushing, man.
Thank you.
So just keep pushing on. The goal is to take care of everybody in the city. So I'm confident that you'll do that. So
Thank you, sir.
I think that we can do that. I believe, Mr. Bailey, we could open this up now to, yes, Yancy?
When we went through the resolutions real quick, there were a couple that were not related to appointments or contracts. Can we just go back to a couple of them real quick?
Go ahead.
One of them was the schedule for the council budget hearing dates. Everyone received the calendar and the sample resolution. I just haven't heard back from everybody on their availability for those dates. If you can please let me know. I know one council member is not available for that first week that was suggested. So if everyone else can also please get back to me.
Yep, please get back to Yancy. Those were dates that you and Sonia worked out, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so they need to get back to you by tomorrow on that. Nobody's got the super calendars, or they can say if they're not available. If they're not available, they're not available. We just have to figure it out.
Yeah.
This has to be. We want to get this done. The sooner, the better. And the fact that we're virtual, we could be anywhere and do that.
Yeah.
So let's see what we got.
The CDBG grant applications are coming due the end of January as well. So we've received one. I'm expecting a lot more by the next council meeting.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
So we just need to be prepared we'll mostly everything we go through tonight, we'll be prepared to act on it at the next meeting.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, to go through this. So we'll be able to do that.
There's a shared services agreement with Bergen
Yeah, I saw that.
Control, because that wasn't a professional service.
Yep.
That, and
Yep.
that pretty much, I think, the main ones that were not related to.
Yeah, we'll take care of those.
The
I just want to make sure, because I want to be able to make what kind of comments we want to make. We have to make in closed session. So, I think that's what we'll do.
Yeah, those are the ones not related to other items.
Okay, so I think we're finished with, we can move on to the public session of the meeting.
Okay.
And
Clock's right.
name, address. You have 2 minutes to speak on any of the items that are up for discussion and resolutions, or anything you want to talk about. But you have 2 minutes in an orderly way.
Okay, so just for everybody, again, if you need to speak, at the bottom of your screen, the more button, just raise your hand and you'll be placed in queue. You'll be called upon. We have 3 people with their hands raised right now.
Sure.
Get started. Amy, go ahead.
Amy Bullock, 312 Howland Avenue. So first, let me apologize if this question was already answered. I'm trying to watch the board meeting as well as the city council meeting, so I may have missed it. But I have to ask again, where are we at with the community being presented with the information from the project that Joyce Dudley worked on? I find it very disturbing that the RFP process is in motion. They don't have the information. We don't have the information. And we're talking about community engagement for an RFP process, and we haven't even gotten the results of the last community engagement initiative from 2 years ago that we paid for. So I'm asking again, when are we going to get the information from Joyce Dudley's initiative? And when is the company that is doing our RFP process going to get the information?
As I said before, when we hear from Joyce Dudley on a personal matter, we will provide you with that information. We're not looking to hide any information, but that's a personal matter, as I said last time. Number two, what Joyce Dudley did and what Stan Slehecter is doing for us, two different things. And we're moving the ball along with the RFP process so we can get down the road, and we're gonna have full transparency. We can't do anything unless we have the RFP process done and completed. So rather than wait on a report that's a report in time, we've decided to move the RFP process along. That's what's gonna make the decisions on what we're going to do with the Liberty School, or the Russell Major Liberty School project.
So help me understand this, because what I was told with the initiative for Joyce Dudley was to gauge the temperature of the community around the community center. So if that was the purpose of that initiative, and you don't know the results of that initiative, how are we moving forward with the RFP process? Because you indicated that we would have that information and then the RFP process would begin. And that's not what has happened. And I understand that you're frustrated, but I need for you to understand that we're frustrated too, because we've been waiting 2 years for this.
Well, the RFP process will guide us on whatever we are going to do, as Stan Slehecter presented to us tonight.
So taxpayer dollars were wasted.
Excuse me. If you let me explain to you, and taxpayer dollars were not wasted. We're going to get something from Ms. Dudley. It was not wasted, but however, in the interim, we believe it was best to move forward with the RFP process, because we have to go through that no matter what. No matter what, we have to go through that. So everybody's frustrated, but that's not going to solve the problem. What we have to do is let Stan start the process, and I think that you will be in a different mindset when he does this for us. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to move the ball down the road. We don't want to keep it here, just be stagnant and keep going around in circles. We want to move it along. So there is some finality with this. So, instead of saying, let's just wait until she comes, no, why don't we just move this along so we can get that done? Granted, I understand you're frustrated. Everybody is. But that's why we're trying to move it along so we can, not be as frustrated as we have been in the past.
So with all due respect, we're moving the process along without the information from that initiative. That's wasted tax dollars.
Well, no, it doesn't, because the RFP is something, the RFP will provide transparency for everybody who wants to come forward with an idea of what they want to do with that property. So, and it will provide various studies from environmental and alike, what could be used for that site. And it also provides an opportunity for the public to participate with that. And so that's what we'll hear, so that's what we're going to get. So I think this will be a more comprehensive and a different look. It's two different things. So I think there's more to come, and you'll hear more to come. So
how much did we pay for the Joyce Dudley initiative?
I don't know exactly the numbers, but she didn't get the full rate. She didn't get the full cost or whatever we budgeted for. Mr. Hamer, I don't know what we budgeted for.
Up to $40,000, but I know she wasn't paid the entire amount. I know she wasn't paid the entire amount.
But so she owes us something, and we'll get it. But
I guess my question is, what purpose is that information going to serve if the RFP process is already in motion and they're going to be essentially repeating some of the work that she's already done?
Well, you know what? It's two different things. What she was saying is a community center. Did people want the community center, or things of that nature, versus here's what you need to do to attract people that want to redevelop that area and bring different ideas to that area. She wasn't putting that part of it together. So more to come. And we'll have more to come. We'll talk about it some more at the next council meeting.
I understand more to come, but y'all been telling us more to come
Okay.
for
Well,
2
listen,
years.
we're all involved in this, right? We're
Okay.
all vested in this. We're all taxpayers here. So we're all working towards that. So you know what? There's nothing how we're going to have full transparency with this, and we'll have more to talk about on this.
Okay, I'm gonna come back next month and ask you
Okay.
again.
You got it. Thank you. Yancy.
Okay, next is Diane Jensen.
Hello, Diane Jansen, 589 Ridgeland Terrace, Englewood, New Jersey. First, I have 4 items. The first one is the Russell C. Major Liberty School, and I'd like to give credit where credit's due. While Mr. Cohen and I, my council representative, don't always agree on things, thank you very much, Mr. Cohen, for expressing the community frustration, not just of our ward, but of all wards regarding the establishment of a community center. That's number one. That's my 1A. Mr. Slacheka, pardon me, mentioned that the council has to have a vision in this RFP project. My question is, what is the council's vision? When will you be developing that vision? And when will you be sharing that vision? Also, I'm glad to hear that we will be having public input at the February meetings that will be set up. Number 2, regarding the inoculation process for COVID-19, I agree with Ms. Marin that we can't just sit back. We need to be thinking strategically as a city, and given my background as a strategic planner, I'd like to propose that the city starts looking at what if scenarios. What's the most likely scenario where the city will need to participate in the inoculation process versus the least likely? In other words, what role do we see the state playing versus the county playing versus local providers playing like Englewood Health? And what's the most likely case, so that we're prepared on several levels?
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
You know, it's very unfair that you can have discussions with other people and last for more than 5 minutes, and I can't present some simple things, very simple things. I have 2 more items and I'm requesting an extension.
Well, Ms. Jensen, if you want, when we get finished, you could come back to the
Thank
line.
you.
I just want to get people done. I want to give
I
everybody a
understand.
chance.
Yes,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Next is Janine Ellis.
Hi, Janine Ellis. Good evening. 1 William Street, Englewood, New Jersey. I am going to the subject of vaccination. What I would like to know is, who are the other entities, and is there or coordinated effort going on to get these vaccines out? It just seems that there's not a lot of awareness of how this process is going to happen. And we need to know, how will the community be made aware of the process? I'm truly concerned about the lack of information and clarity on all of this. I also want to bring up the point that the mayor posted something before about getting the vaccine. And I just wanted to know, was that part of the 100? Or was that vaccine given by a private entity? How did that come about? And who decides who gets what? I just feel that we need more of a coordinated effort and clarity so that the community is made aware and that it's fair.
I can
And-
address that if you like, Mr. Cobb.
Please,
Well,
please,
look-
thank you.
Well,
Sure.
I first, let me let Sonia talk about a coordinated effort if what we're going to do from the city's point of view to get the information out. I think, Ms. Ellis, we spoke earlier about putting something together once the city gets it and work towards providing that type of information for the public, right, Sonia? I believe that's what we said.
Yes, so I already sent Jim a proposal of information of how we're going to roll this out to the community. One of the other things that I would also like to do is do a virtual town hall on the vaccination. So that's what we're
Right.
going to do, those two things. We're going to put together all of the resources that are out there. That's going to get out by the end of the week. And in addition to that, we're going to put together something for next week. I'm just working on the budget this week, so I'm trying to focus on getting those important documents to you all, but likely this is also very important, so I don't want anyone to think it's not. But the information will go out at the end of this week, and then we'll put something together, a town hall next week, where Jim could highlight what we're doing as far as our logistical planning. And so tomorrow, as you all know, I have my management meeting. That's what I typically do after our council meetings the night before. And this is going to be one of the items that we'll discuss with all of the department heads. We'll have a roundtable discussion on how we can all collaborate with one another.
Thank you.
Janine, on the vaccine, you should know that every state is following CDC protocols. Some of them are a little ahead, some of them are slower. I'm an EMT for 30 years, and I missed the round in New York from my ambulance corps, but I qualified to take it in New Jersey because I'm still in that category. And it's very confusing because New York opened up to teachers and to people that are healthcare workers, where New Jersey seems to be slower at the process. The city cannot trump the federal government and the CDC, and the vaccine serum comes from the government. So I think it's smart to have a virtual session with the community and to understand fundamentally, you're going to have Englewood Health, you're going to have ShopRite, you're going to have other private vendors and even the health department. And we want to have more competition. We want more vaccines coming to the city and more ways for people to get them. And the Bergen County mega site and other county facilities are also going to play a significant role as the weather improves too. And we also want to be clever so that we're an aging community that people can park, and if they have allergic reactions or they're concerned about it, they can wait without getting in front of one another. So as information comes in, it's important. Again, just this afternoon, I heard from somebody who says, I have the right people, and on Sunday we deployed 150 vaccines. I just need the vaccines. So I'm going to get that resource, that vendor, over to Jim. If Jim can do something with it for the city of Englewood, then he and Sonia will figure out how to deploy it. My job, is the way I see it, is to collect this information and pass it to City Hall. Communication is absolutely critical. Everybody's right on that.
Somebody's back. We're getting the back feed, Phil.
Thank you so much for that answer. That's what we need in our community, that transparency, and to know that we have a plan. So thank you so much. I think the virtual town hall is a great idea, and I appreciate those answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yancy.
Okay, next is Colette. Allowed to talk. Oh, I'd have to promote her to panelist because she's using an older version of Zoom. All right, let's try. I've never gotten that error message before. Hi, Colette. You have to unmute.
Hi, hello? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Everyone can hear me? Okay, hi. Colette Thompson, Hall Road in Englewood. I don't even know where to begin right now. What Amy said, I piggyback on that, and Janine, Diane, but I have my own little personal issue. Over the last couple of years, I have always been on these meetings and I've talked about and complained and emailed about certain issues in the third ward. Whether it's from speed bumps, speeding, a whole lot of things I've complained about. I even talked about the streets being paved on Liberty Road and Knickerbocker Road and Demarest Avenue. Nobody said, they took their notes down, okay, whatever. But I gotta say this. I emailed Judith Marion. And she emailed me back. She explained to me what she was gonna do. We had a very good conversation. She's gonna connect, talk to Cheryl Rosenberg and traffic, whatever, which is fine. That's the most that I've ever gotten from anybody regarding my complaints about the third ward. And I came to you and I said to you, people are speeding down Tryon Avenue, speeding down Howell Road. Are we waiting for a child to get hit by a car before we put stoplights or some blinking lights or speed bumps or something down Tryon Avenue, right where the middle school is? I did this 2 years ago. I had to go back and look and see when I spoke to the city council about this, nothing has been done. Just like nothing's been done with the community center, just like nothing's been done about certain things that the community comes to you and talk about and come to you wholeheartedly about issues in this city. It's like you guys pick and choose what you guys want to fix. And I have a problem with this because I'm gonna tell you something. I've been very, 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 very patient when it comes to this third ward. Me being the Block Association president of Howell Road and Glenbrook, I'm very passionate about this area over here. And I came to you out of the kindness of my heart and being fearful of these kids walking up and down the street. And I asked for speed bumps years ago. And nobody did nothing. Nobody emailed me back, nobody did nothing. But I want to give thanks to Judith Marion. I appreciate you. I hope that you and I can work together to make things happen in the third ward as far as what I'm asking for. And that needs to be done because thank God COVID, I shouldn't say thank God COVID, because the reason why the kids aren't walking right now to school is because they're home. But I guarantee you, if we don't do what I asked to do with speed bumps and lights on Tryon Avenue and Howell Road and fix these streets on Liberty Road and Knickerbocker, I'm really frustrated because we be on these meetings every month and we sound like it's like, what are we doing? What are you guys doing? Come on, we gotta do better. We gotta do better. If it's not for the community at home, which you guys gonna do on your own, do it for the kids. If I say to you, these kids need speed bumps and stupid stuff like this, not even stupid stuff, minor, this ain't nothing. Broad Avenue got speed bumps. They got the flashing lights over there on Broad. What's the problem over here? And I want to answer tonight. I want to answer tonight. Thank you, Judith, for answering me, because you answered me more than anybody on this city council has answered me in the 2 years I've been asking for this. I'm done.
Yancy?
Sorry, I believe Diane Jensen has her hand raised again.
She's got two. She said she got two things, and that's it.
My computer's just a little slow. I'm sorry. Okay, Diane.
Hi. I'm going to forego those two things with the exception of saying thank you, Bill Bailey, for the concise explanation about affordable housing. We really appreciated that. And I also would like to elaborate on what Colette just said. And, we've spent recently, there was a plan with the Traffic Advisory Committee that spent over $1.5 million or put on their plan to spend over $1.5 million for safety, pedestrian safety and traffic safety. Most of that did not go to the third ward. And I asked the question then, why wasn't it divided in a more equitable way? Or why aren't we spending more to make sure those third ward people are taken care of? And when I say people, I mean those children that are in the third ward. Thank you.
Yancy, that's it? That's it?
Yeah, no one else has
Okay, we're gonna close the public session, and Bill, take us in the closed session, please.
Yes, sir. Be resolved by the governing body of the city of Englewood that it meet in closed session pursuant to subsections 7 and 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, dealing with litigation and matters within the attorney-client privilege, and dealing with personnel matters, specifically appointments. And be it further resolved that the discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public upon taking final action thereon, provided it does not constitute an undue invasion of privacy or violate the attorney-client privilege. And be it further resolved that while the council reserves the right to return to open session, it will in all likelihood just be to adjourn the meeting and with no formal action being taken.
Motion to go into close, and a second.
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're now in closed session.
Everyone just leave this and go to the other link I sent you today.
Okay.
At the bottom of your screen, Judy, bottom
Yeah.
right-hand corner, you're gonna do leave meeting. It says end or leave meeting. The red button.
I'm trying.
There you go.